Hey, this is Dr. Edwards for ANP1 Lab. This is exercise 22 in the lab manuals. We're talking about muscle contractions. So here we're going to talk about the phases of the muscle contractions. So if you have this graph, and if you see a graph like this on your lab practical, you would probably have to identify which phase of the contraction we were pointing to. So you can see here we're measuring tension here in the y-axis and the length of time in the x-axis. So you're starting out with when the stimulus happens, and that's time 0. We're measuring time in milliseconds. So basically before any kind of contraction, that you start out with a resting phase. Once you hit the stimulus, the time between the stimulus and an increase in tension is the latent period. Okay, so resting phase is before the stimulus. Latent period is after the stimulus but before contraction. And that happens around 2.5 seconds, or 2.5 milliseconds, excuse me. So after that, you get to the contraction phase, and that's when you get an increase in tension up until your maximum tension. Okay, then tension decreases, and that is the relaxation phase, when you have a decrease in tension. Okay, so that whole process is about 40 milliseconds. And so if there are successive contractions, as we'll show you in a minute, you'll have the relaxation phase and then potentially a resting phase. And so then you start the contraction phase cycle again. But this is your basic 4 phases or periods, and so I just want to make sure you see that before we go on. All right, so let's move up here to different types of muscle contractions. So here you can see multiple contractions. So this first type of contraction is Treppe. And in Treppe, you'll have an increase in peak tension. You can see the tension keeps increasing. Okay, and it happens with each successive stimulus that's delivered. So each time, each of these arrows is a stimulus being delivered. So it happens when these stimuli are delivered shortly after. I want to make sure you know when these happen. After the completion of the relaxation phase of the twitch that happened before it. Okay, so you're actually having the relaxation phase finish. Okay, all right, in Treppe, and that's when the next stimulus is delivered. Now, look at wave summation. This happens, and you again have multiple stimuli here, and this happens when the successive stimuli arrive before your relaxation phase gets completed. So in Treppe, the relaxation phase is completed, and wave summation is not. So you can see you have a greater increase in tension. Okay. Now, this third type of contraction is incomplete tetanus. And in incomplete tetanus, it happens if your stimulus frequency continues to increase, and it actually gets to a peak. You can see there the peak tension. And here you have very brief periods of relaxation. Okay, so and it is obviously briefer than what you see with wave summation. All right. Now, with complete tetanus, you actually get a stimulus frequency that's so high that you actually have no relaxation phase. It's eliminated. Okay, so you get a maximum level or plateau of peak tension. Okay, so those are your 4 types of muscle contractions. And so again, you want to be able to look at each of these pictures and tell which one is which. And so you want to be able to tell what type of contraction from looking at the graph, and then on the other graph you want to be able to tell which phases of muscle contraction are if I were to point to one of them. All right, so I will see you soon, and we will talk again on another video.